So I want to thank you for coming out to Calgary Economic Development's report to the community. I'm Wellington Holbrook. I'm Executive Vice President of ATB Business and Agriculture, and we're pleased to be sponsoring this event for the third year in a row. In fact, this afternoon you're going to have a chance to hear about the outstanding role the CED has played in shaping and sharing Calgary's story in 2013, which went far beyond just showcasing our current economic strength. We'll also spend some time with some of our city's most accomplished business leaders discussing how community engagement, innovation, and energy literacy are shaping Calgary's future. It's going to be a great event, and on behalf of ATB, we're proud to be part of it. At ATB Business, we know the importance of supporting and building relationships throughout Calgary's diverse and unique business environment. We also know that doing business in Calgary and throughout Alberta can be different than doing business anywhere else in the world. Our goal is to find new ways to gain an even greater understanding about what it takes to run a successful business in Alberta, and one way we're doing that is through ATB Business Speed. And we're taking the time to hear directly from Alberta business owners who are helping us uncover the topics and challenges that keep them up at night. We're then sharing these findings each quarter and using them to provide advice and new solutions for our clients, who are then helping Alberta continue to grow and succeed. And with this research, we're changing the way we do business with Alberta's entrepreneurs. And I just want to give you a quick example because I'm pretty excited about this one. Recently, we launched a brand new approach to personal guarantees for business owners. As an industry, we've become a little bit lazy. We typically would ask for a full 100% unlimited personal guarantee from virtually everyone. And then we'd make exceptions to release or reduce those personal guarantees for clients after an arduous discussion or negotiation. It was at best uncomfortable for business owners, and at times it was just plain insulting. And the worst part is, and we've done our homework on this, we didn't really need a full personal guarantee most of the time. In fact, we think as an industry, we just got comfortable doing business that way. So we're changing that and providing business owners with a way to reach their business goals without having to provide a full personal guarantee on business loans over $250,000. And we're soon launching a new approach for smaller business loans as well. In fact, as we speak, we're returning or reducing the personal guarantee for thousands of Alberta business owners. For this, we're asking for nothing in return except an understanding that ATB means it when we say we want to support Alberta's entrepreneurs and business owners as they build a more prosperous Alberta for everyone. It's a new approach, and it's one that's not very typical in our industry, but is just the beginning of how we plan to completely change what it means to have a relationship with your financial institution. When we say Alberta means the world to us, we mean it. Now, if you want to find out more, go to atb.com/personal guarantee, and you can also check out the latest business speed at atb.com/business speed, and that is the official end of the infomercial. Yay! Let's get on with the exciting event. I'm very pleased to welcome Mayor Nenshi, who you'll hear from right after lunch. I'd also like to say welcome to 8 of our city councilors who've made the time to join us today. Joe Maglioka, Ward 2, Jim Stevenson, Ward 3, Sean Chu, Ward 4, Richard Putmans, Ward 6, Evan Woolley, Ward 8, Brian Pincott, Ward 11, Shane Keating, Ward 12, Peter DeMong, Ward 14, and Rick Fraser, Associate Minister, Recovery and Reconstruction of High River. And we also have Jim Prentice here, and I mean this in the most polite way I possibly can. If you don't know who Jim Prentice is, you need to get out a lot more. So thank you for being here. I'm going to give you a very quick rundown of our time together today. You can enjoy your lunch, and this is a great time to get to know people at your table and check out Calgary Economic Development's annual report. You'll hear from the mayor to kick off the event. Calgary Economic Development will present their annual report. Then we will welcome 3 of Calgary's most distinguished business people to the stage for what I know is going to be an awesome conversation. Now, after we wrap up the panel, we'll release you to some additional networking time until 2 o'clock. But we do have a pretty cool thing happening, too. During lunch, there will be people coming around with bowls. You don't have to put money in them, although I'm sure some people would appreciate that. But you can drop your business card in that bowl in order to be entered to win a pair of tickets, courtesy of WestJet, to fly anywhere they fly in Canada. This is for those that didn't have a chance to drop their card in the hat when they arrived. We'll announce the winner at the end of the program this afternoon, and you need to be here to win. So with that, enjoy your lunch. I just wanted to let you know that there are some greeting cards under your annual report on your table. Those are free for you to take. They have some interesting sayings on them. I would strongly encourage you to grab them. They're free. But I do want to take an opportunity right now to introduce and welcome Mayor Nenshi. I have to tell you a little bit of a story around this very event that happened just a couple years ago. I had actually on the day of the report to the community 2 years ago, I opened my Twitter account. I was very proud. And I was having a conversation around the lunch table with our mayor, and I said, I'm really proud of this. And he said, I want to be your first follower. And he was my very first follower. And he was the very first person I followed. And I realized after that I was like 160,000 on his list, which is now probably 4 times more than that. I'm so proud to say I broke 500 today. Yes, it's all context. I would like to welcome Mayor Nenshi to come say a few words.
Well, thanks very much, Wellington, and thank you all so much for being here today. What a giant crowd. You're going to hear from a panel who actually knows what they're talking about, so that will be much more interesting than listening to me. But I do want to say thank you to all of you for being here with us today. This is about much more than an annual report for Calgary Economic Development. It's an opportunity for us to talk about our community, to talk about where we've been over 2013, and where we're going together as a community. And you've heard me say before that 2013, in many ways, that we all know very well, was a very difficult year for our city. It was a year of trial and of tribulation, but ultimately it was a year of triumph for our community, for all of us coming together to figure out how we move forward together as a community. Certainly, there's a lot of work left to be done in the recovery from the flood, which the Insurance Bureau of Canada calls the greatest natural disaster in Canadian history, at least the costliest natural disaster in Canadian history. And together with our partners in industry and the provincial and federal governments, we continue to do that work. But setting the flood aside for a moment, 2013 was a year of triumph in many other ways. A year of unprecedented growth again for the city of Calgary, of prosperity, of development, and of the great work that Calgary Economic Development does on behalf of all of us. I wanted to tell you that just a few weeks ago, your city council adopted a new set of principles for our growth and for managing our city over the next 4 years, our 4-year business plan. And the very first of those principles is that Calgary be a prosperous city. And I want to talk just for a moment about that word prosperous and what that means. It certainly means that the city needs to continue to be a magnet for talent, that we need to continue to attract people to live here, work here, invest here, start businesses here, grow businesses here, raise families here. We're doing a great job of it. Almost 35,000 people decided to make this city home last year. But we need to continue to do that, and we need to make sure that we are attracting the very best talents from everywhere in the world. And we need to make sure that Calgary remains the best place in Canada to start and to grow a business. But I also want to talk about the other part of prosperity and what we as your council think about when we think about prosperity, what else we're thinking about. And we are thinking about prosperity for all, opportunity for all, sharing our prosperity throughout the community. And that means that we need together to figure out what it takes to make sure that Calgary remains a place where everyone has an opportunity to succeed, where everyone has an opportunity to do well. If you've heard me speak before, you know that I speak a lot about the strength of our community, not so much being in the fact that there are carbon atoms somewhere nearby. Because those great head office jobs that support the energy industry don't have to be in downtown Calgary. You know, I always joke that when I speak outside of Calgary, the greatest surprise the audiences ever have is to learn that the oil sands are not, in fact, located underneath Stampede Park. The Calgary Tower is not, in fact, a derrick. But if you think about it, given that those jobs aren't, given that those resources aren't here, well, those jobs could be anywhere. They could be in Edmonton or Toronto or Shanghai or Dubai. So what is it that attracts that talent to this community and keeps it in this community? And those are the things that we need to continue to work on. And I believe one of those things is that we figured out this very simple truth. The simple truth that evades so many in our broken world. And that simple truth is just this: we're all in it together. Our neighbor's pain is our pain. Our neighbor's strength is our strength. Every single one of us has a stake in the success of every other one of us. That matters, and that's important. And we have to continue to fight for it every single day. You know, I've been surprised over this year, and if you've heard me speak about this, you know that I've been surprised this year, that in a country that prides itself on its openness and on welcoming people, and on giving everyone the opportunity to live a great Canadian life right here, right now, that it was still okay for a major politician, for the leader of a provincial government, in fact, to say to her people, it's okay to have a system where you cannot do certain jobs because of your religious faith. Now, thankfully, Quebecers turned back what I call the Charter of Racism. But the fact that we're still having that discussion in Canada today means that we in Calgary have to speak loudly and proudly and strongly about how our diversity in this community makes us stronger, and how every single one of us deserves the chance right here, right now, to live that great Canadian life. What does that have to do with economic development? And why am I talking about that today? It has everything to do with economic development. Our strength is in the people that we attract, and the fact that we give every single person the opportunity to contribute to our society and our economy in that thoughtful way. And that's one of the things that is incredibly important to us, and we know that that attracts more people and more business. I had the great chance last week to come together in a large group to talk about our economic development strategy and to talk about the things that we need to do. And what really came out of that conversation is that every single one of us has a role in creating that opportunity for others, in building innovative and strong enterprises, in creating communities that support every citizen, in participating in everything that makes this city great. Remember that our vision in Calgary is very simple: a great place to make a living, a great place to make a life. So with that in mind, you're going to hear a lot more about what my colleagues at Calgary Economic Development have been up to, but I'm very proud of the work they've done. The ongoing Be Part of the Energy campaign, a great partnership with Tourism Calgary and Meetings and Conventions Calgary, bringing people to our community. The incredible work that Calgary Economic Development did in conjunction with many partners, including the Chamber of Commerce, after the flood. The Calgary Business Recovery Task Force to get people back to shopping and staying in flood-impacted communities has made a huge difference. Today, I'm proud to tell you that usually after natural disasters, you lose anywhere between 1/3 and 2/3 of small businesses that were affected. And today, I'm pleased to tell you that throughout the city of Calgary, among the thousands of businesses that were affected by the flood, only 20 remain closed. And that's because of the hard work of the community in supporting those small businesses. We still got 20. Some of them wanted to retire. But we continue to have great work to do. And I do want to say one thing, is that much of the success of Calgary Economic Development is due to the leadership of one terrific guy. And so I want to just say today a special thank you on behalf of the citizens of Calgary to Wilf Gilbert, who has been the chair of Calgary Economic Development for, it says 5.5 years. We'll round up, 6 years. And today he steps down from that role, and I know that we're going to miss his dedication, his verve, and his willingness and love for this city, and his willingness to fight for this city and our economic development every day. So thank you, Wilf. But I'm also pleased to announce today that standing on Wilf's shoulders, on that great foundation, I am thrilled that one of the greatest Calgarians has agreed to take on the role of chair of Calgary Economic Development, and that's Steve Allen. So Steve, thank you. I don't need to tell anybody in this room about Steve Allen, but I will anyway. You all know that Steve is a tireless advocate for this community. He lives and breathes and bleeds Calgary in everything he does. And he brings to what we do a brilliant mind and a great love for this city and a real passion for making change. And I'm thrilled to have him here, and I hope that we all get excited about the future of Calgary economic development and about our community. It's easy in my job to get run down. Sometimes people say mean things about you on the internet. Sometimes your city council just doesn't understand that you're always right about everything. They're getting there. Councillor Chabot always understands that I'm right about everything. He's figured it out. But you know what? Every single morning I get to wake up and I get to work in the best place there is. And I stop and I think about what we've got. Someone was telling me the other day, we're all so much on edge this spring. We're probably the only people in Canada who didn't welcome the end of the winter unabashedly, this long, long winter. And certainly every single day, I get the numbers on what the flows are in the river and the amount of water in the reservoir. And someone said to me yesterday, you know what? The one thing we learned, even though there's been problems, even though there's been a lot of pain and a lot of heartache throughout our community, is we learned just how resilient we are. In other places in the world, they start at 0 and a natural disaster shoots them down to -50. The good news is we're starting at plus 10 billion. And together we can get through anything. And if there's anything we've learned in this past year, that's what we've learned. Doesn't mean we can be complacent. Doesn't mean we don't have to continue working every day to keep people safe and to make sure that our community does well. But it does mean that together we know that we showed the world that we can do anything. We showed the world who we are. And that's the great thing about this city. So when we look forward about Calgary's energy and being part of our energy, that's what I think about. I'm excited about what we're building. I'm excited about our city, I'm excited about prosperity, and I'm excited about what we're doing together. And thank you all for being part of that energy.
And now I would like to pass the microphone to Bruce Graham, President and CEO of CED.
Wow, that's a tough act to follow, but I'll do my best. First of all, welcome all of you to the 2013 annual report to the community. We're really pleased to have this record number out here and to give you a sense of the accomplishments we had in 2013, as well as a glimpse of what we see coming up in 2014. And in case you didn't know, we're also celebrating a 10th anniversary. Calgary Economic Development has been the lead economic development agency for Calgary over that period of time, and it's been our privilege to be connecting business people to government and shaping and sharing Calgary's story, both at home and around the world. Now, 10 years ago, I delivered my first report to the community wearing a Flames jersey. And I introduced our newly hired team while the Calgary Flames were painting the city with the sea of red. How many of you guys remember that? Yeah. It'll come back, don't worry. The city has changed a lot in those days, or since those days, but just to give you a sense, our skyline, I know we've gone through a bit of a rough patch with floods, but when you look over the last 10 years, there's been a lot of change. Our downtown skyline has added over 10 million square feet. Our city has welcomed an array of business that now call Calgary home. In fact, the number of head offices in our city, which in 2003 were 84, in 2013 were 135, according to the Financial Post 500. Yeah, you can clap for that too. And while that's an amazing 60% increase, what many people don't probably realize is that the market capitalization of that downtown, just a few blocks away, of the TSX. The total market capitalization is 25% of the TSX total value. And over those 10 years, when you look at it from a regional perspective, over 300,000 people now call Calgary home. That's a 28% increase, and today, I'm sure some of you are in this room that are in that group of people that came here in the last 10 years, so it's a very special welcome to you. And during this period, we added Telspark. They got a new home. The facilities at Windsport have grown dramatically. Festivals like Sled Island and Beakerhead didn't exist here 10 years ago and are now part of our social scene. Yet as much as Calgary has changed, there's some things that 10 years ago haven't changed today. We're still known for our energy, as you heard from our mayor. Our entrepreneurial spirit is alive and well in this room. And of late, we've demonstrated we've got resilience. But over the last 10 years, there's one fundamental shift that has happened in Calgary. And that is that we've become Canada's economic engine. And we need to assume the responsibility that goes with that. And I want to make sure that all of you are up for it. Are you? Yeah, we are Canada's economic engine, aren't we? Yeah. Now, over this last 10-year period, and if I can just maybe dwell on Calgary economic development a bit, there's been 160 companies that we've engaged with, and they've either made decisions to relocate to this region or to expand in their existing facilities or to invest in Calgary. Those 160 companies have collectively occupied 10 million square feet of space in the region and are responsible for retaining or growing 14,000 jobs. Over that same period, through our film and television office, we've permitted over $1.3 billion in film and television productions for Southern Alberta, hence the need for a new film studio. We've also led or participated in 30 trade missions, and I'm pleased to see many of you out here that have joined us on those missions here today. We have also helped taken our base grant from the city, and with your help, we've grown that to nearly $17 million over the past 10 years through private sector contributions, through the support of the community and government partners, more than any other city in Canada. So let's move things a little bit closer to 2013. Again, despite that rough patch with the flood, we've had an incredible bright spot on the national stage. And I really believe that the country as a whole is starting to recognize the economic benefit of our energy sector, and I believe it's about time. I would also suggest that that is also occurring due to the discussion that we're having today about market access and pipeline projects going to the west, going to the south, and east of Alberta. And from our team's perspective, we're very pleased to be in Ontario with the mayor, to be part of that, be part of the energy tour. Unfortunately, it was cut short by the flood, but within 2 weeks, we were back. We're open for business. We were hosting 100 guests at an inaugural Stampede Business Forum, again, focusing on our energy. And immediately following that, we began work on the flood recovery campaign. So folks, it was indeed for all of us, including Calgary Economic Development, a very busy summer. In addition to that, we led 5 trade and investment missions in 2013 to China, Europe, and New York City. Our Soul of the City speaker series continued to grow in popularity and, in fact, has engaged more Calgarians and Calgarians that we don't normally engage with. Our work shift program, our Calgary Film Center project have all achieved significant milestones. But rather than having me carry on about our accomplishments, why don't we turn it over to the video produced by our partner Joe Media and share with you the accomplishments of 2013.
Working together right here makes us a strong Calgary.
Calgary Economic Development has been working together right here for 10 years now.
That's right. Over the past 10 years, we've been connecting individuals, businesses, and community and helping promote Calgary.
Calgary is still Canada's economic engine.
And our lifestyle is still enviable around the world.
Yes, it's been an amazing 10 years for Calgary, and this last one was no exception.
In 2013, Calgary made headlines in Canada and around the world.
We continued to drive Canada's economy and created more than 24,000 new jobs in the Calgary region.
That's more than 10% of all the new jobs in Canada.
And they're not all big business jobs either.
In fact, 95% of the businesses in Calgary have fewer than 50 employees.
And about 4,000 new small businesses opened in our city last year.
Unemployment averaged 4.8%.
Downtown vacancy has increased for the first time in years as some companies relocated closer to their operations out of the downtown core.
In spite of that, the industry remains highly optimistic as building permits rose last year overall.
But it was more than opportunity and economic strength that made the headlines.
Last year, Money Sense magazine named Calgary the best place to live and raise a family in Canada.
Plus, we're still rated the 5th most livable city in the world for the 5th year in a row.
Wow!
As conduits, connectors, catalysts, and storytellers, we're proud to be part of the energy.
In 2013, we continued to focus on international reach and led 15 Calgary companies to China.
We also welcomed 21 national and international trade delegations to Calgary,
including the first ever Stampede Business Forum.
The Stampede Business Forum was an opportunity for international business to meet with local business, to explore investment opportunities, to support growth and development of the energy industry.
In total, our Global Business Center welcomed thousands of guests to over 168 events and seminars.
We also housed 18 new companies in our short-term office space.
10 of those companies have since opened permanent homes here in Calgary.
We hosted a transportation and logistics media trip to showcase Calgary's growing transportation infrastructure and distribution center.
And $1 million worth of stories that position our city as a Western distribution hub.
Part of our economic development diversification includes growing the creative industries in Alberta.
2013 was a stellar year for us. We were able to bring in significant foreign projects that were enabling our crews to work all the way through the year.
To help build on that growth, Calgary Economic Development was the lead agency behind the advancement of the Calgary Film Centre.
With funding support from the City of Calgary and the Government of Alberta, the Calgary Film Centre will be a purpose-built facility.
And the innovation continues.
Last year, our award-winning Work Shift program was rolled out to other Canadian cities and achieved a significant milestone.
We are essentially going to do for the workforce what LEED did for buildings and build a work shift certification program. It'll provide them really a roadmap for adopting flexible work programs.
Creating more flexibility.
Calgary Economic Development continues to focus on workforce for businesses of all sizes.
Working with Calgary employers to understand their needs, we helped find skilled workers at home and across Canada.
Well, the National Skilled Migration Conference provided us an opportunity to take a look at where the skills mismatches were, where our talent shortages were, really helping secure skilled migration in Calgary.
We need to ensure Calgary continues to be the best place to live for years to come.
Soul of the City is really a conversation we're having with Calgarians about what makes a city great. It's an opportunity to really talk about the aspects of the city that, as economic developers, is helping us really attract and retain the best workers we can.
To plan for the future, we're updating the 10-year economic development strategy for the City of Calgary.
In 2013, we engaged hundreds of Calgarians to determine how we can work together to ensure sustainable economic development.
You see people come from different organizations who may have had different agendas, and they start to talk about how they can work better together to ensure that we grow into the city that we want in the future.
But 2013 wasn't all good news.
As floodwaters spread, hundreds of homes were damaged, and nearly 4,000 businesses closed.
In immediate response, Calgary Economic Development and Calgary Chamber co-chaired the Calgary Business Recovery Task Force.
The Chamber would get businesses up and operating as quickly as possible. And our role was really to encourage Calgarians to get back into those flood-affected areas and those businesses to eat, drink, shop, and visit, and start supporting them again.
Thanks to the support of many partners, we launched a $1.4 million marketing campaign.
And it created a real awareness even about how you can support a local business.
With a focus on our strong economy, enviable lifestyle, and best place to live ranking, we continue to tell Calgary success stories across the country and around the world.
One of our most effective storytelling tools is the Right Here video.
Developed for the Calgary Be Part of the Energy campaign, Right Here is primarily used for labor attraction.
a message recently delivered to the business community and students in Eastern Canada.
And our work is being recognized.
We received 29 International Marketing and Industry Awards in 2013.
Our research team filled over 600 information requests that help companies build business cases, assess viability, and make educated decisions to build, grow, and move their business to Calgary.
Fortunately, the work we do is made possible through the leadership, commitment, and financial support of our partners,
including the City of Calgary, our volunteer board of directors, and, of course, our Action Calgary corporate partners.
By working together with these dedicated groups, we're able to tell the Calgary story, attract investment and trade, and invite business and people to be part of the energy right here in Calgary.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Well, look at if that wasn't enough, economic development, as you can tell, is very wide and broad, and we've actually at your table you'll find again very wide, very broad, more detailed information on what we've done in 2013. And if that's not enough, please feel free to go to our website. You'll find sectoral analysis, economic indicators, everything in much greater detail than what you just saw now. And that's all done because we have a very committed team that's working on innovative programs to help build a vibrant and diverse economy and a strong community to ensure that this is the place to be for everybody that calls Calgary home. Our team of dedicated employees and volunteer board make it possible, and I think it's important to recognize all those people that have contributed to our success over the last 10 years. So, if you'd bear with me just for a minute, I'm going to first ask, and I'll ask these people to stand and remain standing, and that would be our current board members. Please stand up, and please hold your applause. Steve, you're now the board chair. You better lead by example. Please stand up. We're going to add to that group by inviting our current employees from around the room here to stand up. Could you do the same? And we're going to do a big leap and ask all those past employees and past board members to stand up as well. All right. As you can see, our team, both past and present, reach right around this room and throughout the community. Please join me in recognizing this dedicated group of individuals. Now, what you may not realize is that we have another milestone to celebrate, and that is our Action Calgary program that you've heard about in the video. And we've been working with Calgary's leading organizations and business leaders for the last 5 years, and it's really because of their support that we're able to do the things that we do. Some of the projects that you heard about are critical and only can be done with the support of our partners. That includes that right here video that was done last summer, which actually was seen by over 100,000 people and showcases our city. It was followed up this year by a magazine that we call Life in Calgary, or that's called Life in Calgary. I'll show it to you right now. You're going to get copies of this on the way out. But it's basically a labor attraction tool that will help prospective Calgarians, because everybody is a prospect out there, to learn more about our neighborhoods, our schools, our recreation, our sporting facilities, and learn how to deal with that changing weather condition that we have to deal with, and even how to get an Alberta driver's license. Both the Right Here video and the Life in Calgary magazine are also actively used as part of our Be Part of the Energy campaign. And it's only possible with the support of our Action Calgary partners. So the reason to be involved as an Action Calgary partner is as diverse as the 60 partners that we have. But we thought we would give you a glimpse of what a few of them have to say, so we'll turn back to the video.
Action Calgary is Calgary Economic Development's corporate partnership program, and we're excited to be celebrating 5 years of working together. Over the last 5 years, we've had the privilege of working with some of Calgary's leading organizations and business leaders, companies of all sizes that cross a wide variety of sectors. Our Action Calgary partners have helped us shape and share Calgary's story across the country and around the world.
We were interested in the exposure that we would be able to obtain by being a member of Calgary Economic Development. I actually feel passionately that they are a key player in the business of Calgary. I think they are the connector of people coming from the outside, and also, though, connecting Calgarians with Calgarians.
Well, we really all have the same objective of trying to create a great city that can attract investment, attract great people. We do support all their different functions as ways to meet other business people and, share common ideas and try and develop business opportunity. And frankly, they put out a lot of great information as well.
It helps us connect with our own clients better and connect with the community. I think there's so many advantages to be partners with Calgary Economic Development. They've got business forums, they've got trade missions, we've got the Global Business Center. It also provides a forum for our voice should we have concerns about certain economic development in Calgary.
It was great actually coming to a new city, having a partner right downtown close to our office that we could work with on various projects like international recruiting. They're a great partner. I work in HR, and a big part of my mandate is to find people and find the best talent around the world, and they've definitely helped me with that kind of initiative.
Participating in Action Calgary gives us a wonderful opportunity to work with other partners in different fields of endeavor. And I think when you take professional sports and different elements of business and you mix them together, you get a wonderful combination of attractive things about our city, and that's a great way to sell your city.
Thank you to each of our Action Calgary partners for your support over the past 5 years and for being part of the energy. We're excited to continue working together right here to build a strong economy, embrace shared prosperity, and build a strong community.
All right. Thank you, partners. And we are, yes. Now, we're pleased to be joined here by 18 of our partners that have been with us since the beginning. And without their support, we could not be shaping and sharing Calgary's story. So I'd like to take a minute and recognize those partners, and I'm going to read their names and their companies. I'm going to ask them at the conclusion of that to stand up. I'm going to ask you to be patient and not do anything until they do. And I'm going to start, I guess, in alphabetical order by saying Aspen Properties, Scott Hutchison, thank you. Synovus Energy, Vicki Reed, I think, is here representing Synovus. We got Bow Valley College, represented by Val Hoy. Monica Zarowski, who's representing the Calgary Herald. From the Evans Group, the Evans Hunt Group, we got Dan Evans, Danny Du Bois from First Calgary Financial. From HBI, Mike Taylor. Matt Gillespie, who's producing those great videos from Joe Media Group. From Nexon Energy, we got Denis Pichot, Doug Forsyth from Pattison Outdoor Advertising, Heather Lawton from Quintero Imaging, Murray Edwards from numerous things, but today we're going to go with Resorts to the Canadian Rockies. Ross Glenn, one of the first people I met when I came to this city, a true champion of this city with RGO Office Products. Patricia Evans, who you saw on the video with Sislin Evans Interior Design. Susan Mead Kiss with the University of Calgary, our first post-secondary partner. And Jeff Bradshaw from V Strategies. Oh, and last but not least, Melissa Hamanek from PwC. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand up and give a round of applause for our partners. Now, there is something for being a 5-year partner that is being distributed as we speak, I hope, to our various partners by our staff and board. It's a unique gift from Quintero Imaging to recognize your 5-year support. Now, our Calgary partners, along with our board of directors, advisory committee members, and city council, continue to provide guidance and direction. And I want to thank every one of you for that unwavering commitment and support. And in particular, I want to thank our outgoing board members who've been with us in most cases for 6 years, which is our term limit. And they include Councillor Brian Pincott, Bill Chomick, and Brett Ironside. All these individuals have contributed significantly both on boards and committees with Calgary Economic Development. And at the same time, When they leave, they're being replaced by fantastic people coming on board, and I'm very pleased to welcome Brad Pierce, Leontine Atkins, and Quincy Smith. So thank you very much for coming on board and being part of our Calgary Economic Development. But there's one person I want to single out, and that is our outgoing board chair, Wolf Gobert. He's been leading our organization, as you heard, for 5.5 years. I call it 6, but the reality is his impact has been on board governance, it's been on engaging our partners, and it's been his passion for the organization, for the city, and all that it represents. And on a personal note, I'd like to express my heartfelt thanks, Wolf, for your years of service. I'll miss your guidance, your input, your advice, as you move on to new roles. And yes, Wolf, I will miss those weekly 7:30 a.m. Skype calls from wherever you may be. Wolf spends a lot of time in what's that place? Indian Wells. You know where that is? Palm Springs. He didn't experience the floods this year quite the same as some of us. Anyways, as a last act of our outgoing board chair, I'd like to call Wolf up to say a few parting words.
Thank you very much, Bruce. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's been an interesting 6 years. I didn't have much interest in municipal politics when I quit work 8 years ago, but when you're told that you're being recruited and recommended by, among others, Murray Edwards, I thought, well, maybe I better do this. And it's been absolutely terrific. And so I want to recognize the people that Bruce and the mayor have talked about. First of all, over the course of 6 years, you have directors coming and going, 3-year terms, 6-year total limit. And so over 6 years, I've had about 30 fellow members of the business community who have served on the board and have been, outstanding, generally speaking, people who want to give back to the community. There's an annual advertisement by CED looking for new recruits. It's usually accompanied by a skill set that they're seeking. And so if you have an interest, I'd encourage you to reach out to Bruce. Secondly is that great organizations start with great assets, and then they get built by great people. And for all of us in this room, our great asset is our natural resources. Within CED, the execution of looking at issues, developing strategies, and then coming up with action plans that deliver outstanding results is really due to Bruce Graham, his management team, and his employees. Thank you, Bruce. And lastly, I want to thank the Action Calgary partners. My first year in the organization, I think our revenue contribution from the corporate community was about 20% of our funding. This past year, it was virtually 40%. I don't know how many the number of people on that list have grown by the number of companies, but it's been more than a double, and it's been outstanding. And so thank you to all of you, Action Calgary. And with that, I'll turn it back to Bruce. Thank you.
Thanks, Wolf. Well, even though Wolf is leaving the board, he will be leaving his influence with us. It'll be felt in our plans and the activities that we carry on doing. And while Wolf will be a tough act to follow, I can't think of a better person to fill that role, and I want to extend my personal congratulations and best wishes to Steve Allen. He's done a masterful job working with the city's economic strategy, and I know he's going to do a fantastic job as board chair for Calgary Economic Development. So, Steve, welcome aboard. Now, as we look forward this year, we will continue to work as conduits, connectors, and catalysts. We'll be sharing our story and doing it our best to position Calgary as a location of choice for people and business. Our recent annual survey of Calgary businesses that was completed in 2014 revealed that more than half of those companies are expecting to grow this year. And that's a very compelling number that we need to pay attention to. Labor force will continue to be a key area of focus, with over 40% of our local employers expecting to hire new employees this coming year. And while we remain hopeful about a pipeline decision, maybe in the next year, we have to remain mindful of the labor impacts and the housing constraints. Our city is in a very enviable position with its unique opportunities and lifestyle, but we have to keep in mind as we continue to grow that we need to find places for everyone to live at a price they can afford. And for that, we intend to keep a pulse on both the commercial and the residential real estate markets through new committees that we're setting up. And we're also looking at creating a housing availability and affordability monitor, and hopefully this will help address some of those issues coming up in our real estate world. Looking forward, Calgary Economic Development is going to focus on 6 key areas, and I'll just touch on them quickly. We'll focus on business and trade development and investment activities that will attract and retain and expand the business opportunities in Calgary. And part of that is an outreach effort to our local companies to address that 50% growth that we're anticipating. Workforce development will continue to be a priority, bringing together industry associations, post-secondary institutions in the private sector to help create jobs first for Albertans and Calgarians, and Canadians, of course. But when that talent becomes short and is not available locally, we'll be supporting our companies in their targeted international recruitment efforts. We'll also continue to support our Soul the City Speaker Series to broaden that stakeholder base and to increase our presence in the community development area. We'll also complete the economic development strategy that should be wrapping up this fall. We'll build a Calgary Film Center, and we certainly hope to engage the energy industry to create new venues to support energy innovation, supply chain development, and energy literacy. We'll continue to work together with our very important partners, our promotional authorities, and tell Calgary's story as a great place to live, work, and to make a life. And last but not least, we will be working with our primary shareholder, the City of Calgary, our board, and our Action Calgary partners to invite people and businesses to be part of the energy right here in Calgary. So, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes my formal remarks. Thank you for coming to the report to the community. We look forward to working together with each and every one of you. And with that, I'm looking forward to the panel ahead and welcoming back Wellington Holbrook from ATB, our key partner of this event. So enjoy the rest of your lunch. Thank you.
So I get the pleasure of introducing some amazing Calgarians, some big thinkers, to talk about community engagement, innovation, energy literacy, and the role they play as our city continues to grow and evolve. I mean, I think we can all agree we have an exciting future ahead of us, but we certainly have a lot of things we need to be thinking about. So let me start with the introductions. I'm going to start with Murray Edwards. Heard of Murray? Have you heard of Murray? Oh, wow, Murray. I've heard of you. Have you heard of Murray?
Yeah.
Yes. He's president and owner of Edco Financial Holdings Limited, a Calgary-based management company. He's a leading investor in and a managing director and executive chairman of numerous publicly traded companies, including Canadian Natural Resources Limited, Ensign Energy Services, and Magellan Aerospace Corporation. He also owns a number of private companies, including Resorts of the Canadian Rockies, Inc. Today, those companies employ over 25,000 people. He's also a director, chairman, and co-owner of the Calgary Flames Hockey Club. Murray graduated with a Bachelor of Commerce from the University of Saskatchewan with great distinction and a Bachelor of Laws from the University of Toronto with honors. After moving to Calgary in 1983, he became a lawyer and later a partner with Burnett, Duckworth, and Palmer, a Calgary-based law firm. At a community level, Murray is a member of the board of directors of the Canadian Council of Chief Executives and the C.D. Howe Institute. I'd also like to introduce Scott Hutchison, founding partner the chairman and president and CEO of Aspen Properties Limited, which is involved in the ownership and management of approximately $1 billion of downtown office buildings, primarily in Calgary and Edmonton. Mr. Hutchison holds a Bachelor of Science in Finance from the University of Utah, a Master of Science from Columbia University, and is a member of several public, private, and not-for-profit boards as a director or trustee. Scott has been named one of Alberta's 50 most influential people by Alberta Venture Magazine. And prior to joining Aspen, Mr. Hutchison worked with a major Ivy League university pension fund in the real estate business and for Goldman Sachs and Company in New York and San Francisco in corporate finance. Scott was a member of Canada's national alpine ski team from 1978 to 82 and an NCAA All-American. Nancy Southern is Chair, President, and Chief Executive Officer of ATCO Limited and Canadian Utilities Limited and ATCO Company. Ms. Southern also serves as Executive Vice President of Spruce Meadows. She's a Director of Akita Drilling Limited, Centgraph Enterprises Limited, and is an Honorary Director of the BMO Financial Group. Ms. Southern was appointed by the Honorable Jim Flaherty, former Minister of Finance, as a member of his Economic Advisory Council and as a member of a committee led by Status of Women Minister Kelly Leach to offer advice to the federal government on how to encourage more women on Canada's corporate boards. In 2013, Ms. Southern received the T. Patrick Boyle Founders Award from the Fraser Institute for her entrepreneurial achievements and recognized accomplishments in the promotion of freedom and free markets. She was also included in Fortune's list of the 50 most powerful women in business, the Global 50, and named as one of the 50 most important people in Canada by Maclean's. Please join me in welcoming Scott Murray Nancy to the stage. Well, thank you very much. This is a conversation. This is just like in my living room, really. 600 people right here. It's just like, wow. I'm not very funny. I do try really hard, but we're going to make this very entertaining. I'd like to start with a question for you, Scott. As our city continues to grow, how will the changing demographics of our city influence how people engage in the community and how the community engages with newcomers?
Thank you, Wellington. I'm going to address the question primarily from the area of real estate, because that's my knowledge base. And not dissimilar to most of the North American cities, Calgary is really experiencing a number of macro trends that will change the way we use our real estate in Calgary and where commercial real estate is located, where residential real estate is located. And I'll discuss three general trends that will shift the way we think and look at our real estate in the next few years. The first one's demographics, the second one's behavioral changes, and the third is that of e-retail. The big change on the demographics is about the youth, the millennials that are coming to the city. They aren't dreaming about the things that I dreamt about. They aren't dreaming about a picket fence. They aren't dreaming about owning a car at 16 or 18. They don't have the same desires to branch out into the suburbs. They're happy to have a small footprint. So they're seeking multifamily housing product, often in the Beltline, in the inner city, or certainly around transit nodes. The aging population that is looking at multifamily in ways that Calgarians didn't a generation ago. And the folks that are most prominent in coming to our city right now are the first generation Canadians and that big influx of folks. And they're probably more inclined to look at multifamily housing. So coupled with those changing demographics, there's also a behavioral change in our city, a lifestyle preference for live, work, and play. And this is not a new concept to North America, but it's quite new to our city, where people are choosing from a behavioral standpoint to live and to work and to play in the same neighborhood. These changes, coupled with the cost of land, the difficulty of our economic growth, lack of serviced lots, tight resale market, cost of parking, the longer commute today, has led Calgary to a strategy towards densification. So what this densification and live, work, play will drive is an increased demand for suburban office out in the suburban areas. Imperial Oil, as we know, has made that move. There's also an explosion, and I mean an explosion of residential multifamily demand in the greater area of the city, specifically in the East Village, in the Beltline, and to the extent possible in the downtown. So there'll be 5,000 new residential units that have been sold or planned to be developed in that region in the next 5 years. So the other two dynamics that'll play out in our city are about retail. And retail changes are massive. Consider that as a result of competition, declining margins, and huge internet sales, all of the following retailers have announced that they will close stores soon. Sears, JCPenney, Macy's, Barnes & Noble, Staples, Neiman Marcus, The Office Depot, Radio Shack, The Gap, Abercrombie Fitch, Best Buy, Target, and Family Dollar Store. So wow, that's a dynamic shift. We can read about what retail is doing in our city, and it's a blip. We are getting a little bit of a pop, but that's generally as a result of what's happening in our demographics and the growth of the city. The e-revolution, or the e-retail, is here now. Consider this. Amazon has $75 billion in sales in 2013. They're up 22% year over year. And on their busiest shopping day, more than 368 million items were ordered. 426 items per second. So the internet, or the non-store retail, will see sales of 300 billion plus, 380 billion likely in 2017. 10% of all the sales of the US. So the future of non-perishable retail, so non-food products, non-service oriented retail, so things like your tailor will survive, but if he doesn't provide a service, he won't survive. And the less than high-end specialty products, so your jeweler is fine, but some aren't. So those commodity retailers, they don't fall into the categories of above, will reduce their space needs by about 50% in the next few years. What's that mean for our city? Destination super regional malls like Chinook Center will be fine. In fact, there's higher demand there for the premium retail in our city, but strip malls that are located on possible or potential transit-oriented corridors will become development sites. We're thinking of these as not necessarily oversupplied sites, but instead we're actually thinking of them as under-demolished sites. They'll be repurposed, and they're perfectly suited for new demand of what I was speaking about with the demographics for multifamily. So with smaller footprints for retailers, and most retailers without walls, without bricks and mortar, and with more retailers without malls, without walls, and without bricks and mortar, the obvious third important shift we'll see is a need for big bay industrial space. Consider that Amazon needs 60 to 80 million square feet of new industrial space in the next few years. So let me wind up by saying anything but the best retail will shrink, and it may get demolished, and certainly that'll start along our transit-oriented corridors. Residential multifamily condos will provide lots of new choices, both in the suburbs and on the transit-oriented corridors and in the downtown, and that'll be where it happens most frequently. Today, the multifamily represents about 30% of the home sales annually in Calgary. A number of years ago, it was significantly less than that. It won't be long before it's 50-50. There will be densification. There will be densification in the downtown, there will be densification over the corridors, and there will be densification in new product types offered in the suburbs. Industrial space is going to grow a ton, and finally there will be some US-style office campus that sprout out around the south end of the city in a bigger way.
Scott. Murray, maybe we can move to you. Most projections suggest Calgary will continue to lead Alberta's and Canada's growth for the next decade. Obviously, there must be some things we need to be thinking about or some risks to keep our eye on. Would you like to give us some thoughts on that?
Well, first, Wellington, I'd like to thank you in your trying to make some humor. You didn't make any fun of the Flames, so I appreciate that, because we are trying hard. We are trying hard on the Flames. I guess I go back to a word that the mayor used today, a prosperous city, and commend him for his leadership in driving that. And I look back at my own self. I came to Calgary in 1983 a young graduate from law school. And when I arrived here, I said, oh my God, what a great city we live in. The opportunities to chase your dreams, to chase your passion, dynamic city, an entrepreneurial city. And I've had some success along the way, and I give a lot of the success along the way by creating an environment in Calgary, an environment in the province that encourages entrepreneurial growth, encourages investment, encourages success, and does it in a way that is giving back to the community. And so I just personally, every day get up much like the mayor and are blessed at how great we live in this city. And so that's how I approach this. But at the same time, I look to the slogan today of the Calgary Economic Development, be part of the energy. And you know, I've come to realize that the economic driver of this province is the energy, oil and gas industry in so many ways. I mean, we talked that the economic impact oil and gas industry is somewhere between 20 and 25% of the GDP on a direct basis. But the impact is so much broader on an indirect basis in terms of all the related service, whether it be real estate, occupation, or using of legal services, or restaurants, or power demand. And so my view is, how do we make sure for the next generation and beyond that, we maintain that prosperity, we maintain Calgary as a prosperous city, and make sure our energy industry is viable, because that's the blessing we have here. We have lots of energy, and how do we ensure that? And I guess that, you know, I want to say, although Calgary's had, you know, and Alberta's had lots of good economic growth the last decade, it hasn't been without some dark clouds and without some challenges. And right now in the energy industry, you know, I sit around the table with most of my industry peers, and the biggest single factor that we have now is a word we're using more and more is competitiveness. It is very competitive now on a global basis to attract capital to this industry. Alberta has become very much a high-cost jurisdiction in terms of we have some of the lowest productivity and some of the highest costs in North America or in the world. And those are reality. You can't change that. But then you have to adopt that. And if we don't adopt that, I worry about keeping the prosperity we have in the city. In terms of specific examples I would give you, one is market access. Clearly a challenge right now for the industry is making sure that we have access to markets for our products. Bruce Graham talked about the pipeline. It's not just the Keystone Pipeline, it's the Gateway Pipeline, it's the Terrazin Mountain Pipeline, it's the Energy East Pipeline. We've got to develop a framework where all Canadians understand that having energy from Alberta, Canada's energy, get to markets is beneficial to all the country, not just Alberta, not just Calgary. And so we're working hard with governments, but not just government, but also with the public to understand the importance of market access. Right now, because we don't have full market access, we are the marginal supplier in North America, which means we receive sometimes $10, sometimes $30 a barrel less than we would get market price. What does that mean? At the extreme, it's somewhere impact the Canadian economy of about $20 billion a year. $20 billion a year, the Canadian economy, and that's lost government revenue, that's lost employment wages, that's lost investment back in the infrastructure, that's jobs. So it's an impact on all of us. So market access is one challenge that I see. Second challenge I see is government policy. You know, when I look back on the prosperity we have, I give a lot of credit to governments both at the provincial, federal, and municipal level over the last number of decades that provide strong leadership and encourage the spirit of entrepreneurism. We are struggling a bit here, I would say, more so in Alberta right now on the regulatory government framework. I think that I would use the word complacency. I think there's a little complacency set in the province, thinking that our prosperity is a given. I can say this right now, two stories. If you're going to license a well in Alberta right now that has any Aboriginal impact, your license time now in Alberta is 205 days longer than if that well is being licensed in Saskatchewan, and 198 days longer than it's been licensed in BC. That's a competitive disadvantage. You can't have that kind of extra time cost put on a system and be competitive. That's Saskatchewan and BC that are our neighbors and our competitors. That's an example. Another example, a funny story I tell you, a couple months ago, I got a call from my guys at Canadian Natural. We got a citation from the Alberta Energy Regulator saying that we had committed a violation. If we didn't correct it right away, we were going to be cited. And, you know, we take those things very seriously. We have some challenge from time to time, but so we had a group of guys go out to the field, and the citation was we'd left construction waste on a drill site. So we sent our guys out to the field. They looked at it, took pictures, came back, and they said, Murray, there's nothing there. We looked, there's nothing there. And the regulator came back and said, no, here's the construction waste left in the field. And our guy said, no, that was a cow salt lick. And it was in the middle of the field. And it was a regulator who didn't understand what a cow salt lick, somebody had been put into the job. And I think there's an obligation on governments and industry to work together. Those things are just, it's a little story, but it shows the challenge in terms of competitive nature. And the final issue for the industry is I think we have to maintain an industry that encourages entrepreneurial creation. I think we want to be able to always have little companies be able to start up, to raise capital, to grow. Some grow into be large companies, some don't succeed and fail. But I think that's one of the great things about Alberta is there's entrepreneurial companies. You have the large, you have the small. And so with government policy, we have to make sure we maintain that and not become so regulatory burdened that doesn't happen. So, I think that the growth opportunities in Alberta is great. We sit with, the third largest supply of fossil fuel in the world, second to Venezuela and Saudi Arabia in first. We have somewhere around 178 billion barrels of reserves in Alberta. Majority, 172, are in the oil sands. And so we have a great potential, but we got to make sure we have a way to develop that from a regulatory framework. And maybe I'll come back and talk a little bit later about the environmental side, which is also an issue.
Thank you very much, Murray. That's very interesting. And Nancy, maybe we can move to you. I mean, obviously, one of the things to consider as we're continuing to be in such a growing city is infrastructure, and I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that.
Well, I have a few. First, may I congratulate Bruce on 10 years for this incredible gathering and the magnitude and also my congratulations to Will for tremendous service to this city, and my best wishes to Steve to continue in those big footsteps of Will. I think all of the directors deserve a big round of applause for your participation along with the city and your worship and your councillors. I'm very proud to be Calgarian. I'm proud to have been born here. I'm proud that my family has all been born here. My great-grandparents homesteaded here, and I feel very much part of this great city. Resiliency, I'm not sure, is just a new thing after the flood, because I think our city has had incredible hardships thrown at it over many decades, over the last 100 years. And, we're still a very young city, and it's still a very young province. But we do keep coming back, and it is a tremendous spirit that pervades this room and this city and all of the communities that we participate in. And when you have natural disasters, it's very tangible that people can come together and fix things and feel good about supporting your neighbors and continuing to do this on the basis that you want prosperity for everyone. And I think what Murray's touched on here is important for us to think too in terms of our business, that we must, for sure we have to look at what people's rights are, and we have to understand the importance of the constitutional nature of First Nations, Aboriginal, and Métis rights. We have to understand the rights of all religions to be able to participate in an open and free society. But there is a risk to ongoing regulatory burden, and I do believe that it will dampen the spirit if we don't nip it in the bud. Because we will lose to other provinces, we will lose to other countries if we continue to burden our businesses with prolonged regulatory process. And the addition of growing, it's actually a growing business, of interventions. The permitting process, you have to go through numerous agencies. It doesn't matter whether it's for a transmission line or a distribution line or a gas pipeline or a gas distribution line. And there isn't a lot of coordination between the agencies. So if Murray wants to try and exploit a new resource area, and
Develop. We don't like the word exploit.
Value add.
It's just semantics. Develop a new resource area, and there isn't power in that area, then not only, so, and I have some pretty good real examples too. So there's the permitting process for the major project. And I'm going to use one that became a real problem for us, and that was the Husky Sunrise. So the Husky Sunrise project was going, everybody was aware of it. They'd gotten their permitting process. They had let the Alberta Electric System Operator know that they were going to require power on a certain day to commission the project. A very large project, very important to the Alberta economy, the Canadian economy, and really to provide international oil if we can get it out there. It took 2.5 years for us to be able to get approval to put the wires in, not even a power plant, to actually just put the transmission wires in to provide power for the site. And we only had, in that 2.5 years, we had 16 weeks to actually do the construction. 16 weeks. And it didn't work, as you can imagine. You couldn't get that much. We had to build about 140 kilometers of line. We had to upgrade a substation. We had to put in a new substation. We couldn't get it done in 16 weeks. And Husky Sunrise ended up being late. We had to put on 24/7 crews. We brought up lights. This is in the middle of a very remote area in Alberta. And it cost Husky, and it costs ratepayers for electricity in this province about 4 times more than it should have. And many of you have heard me talk about the cost of electricity. It doesn't need to cost that much. And electricity is the lifeblood for any economy, for economic development. You have to have a reliable economic source of power in order to incent economic development. And I believe that we need to rally together and be resilient and come up with a well thought out and considered plan to improve the processes that we've got right now.
So Nancy, you're echoing some of my comments that the prosperity in Alberta, Calgary, we're blessed to live here.
Yep.
We appreciate, we appreciate it's a gift, but there are some challenges out there in terms of we have an economy become less flexible, less entrepreneurial, less more regulatory burden than the past. And if we're not careful, those are going to impact that prosperity. That's my concern. Yours?
That is my concern. I think on the real estate side too, Scott.
Yeah, no, for sure. We have the opportunity to receive growth. Most of the globe is looking to find growth. And if we're not good about the way we run our businesses and the way we run our province and the way we run our municipal departments, we're going to turn away growth. And we are so fortunate to have it. Right. So the mayor's working with a bunch of us to try and expedite the process. It used to be, I moved here in '98, and it was 3 months to get a development permit, and it was $1 million to spend to get a development, or sorry, $300,000 to get a development permit in terms of the work you do to get there. Today it's a couple of years generally, and it's $1 million or $1.5 million. So it's a very challenging thing because in this city especially you got cycles, and those cycles move pretty quickly. And so from the time you've drawn a building till the time you can actually construct it, permit it, construct it, build it, get it up on the grounds, 6-7 years. And if you're held up a couple of years getting to the cycle, it's a problem. It's easy for us, though, as leaders in the community to complain about it. Like, we're all pretty good at figuring out how slow it is. The challenge that we've got to figure out as a community, and I'm just going to go a little bit off track here, and I'm going to say a challenge that I see is the whole collaboration thing that Calgarians have been great at, Albertans have been great at, and Canadians have been great at for 50 years, maybe 100 years. We've been really great at collaboration, but I don't see political parties at the provincial level collaborating. I see more conflict and personal assassination than I can possibly imagine, and it's taken down two great people that, that maybe, maybe needed to move on, but they were two great people that don't deserve what gets left behind. I mean, there wasn't collaboration at the political level in the province, and there needs to be collaboration between His Worship and our new Premier. And it's collaboration that'll make our city great. It's collaboration that'll make our province great, and we got to find ways to work with the First Nations, to work politically up and down, at every level from municipal to federal. Yeah. And it's that stuff as leaders in the community that we got to pull together our politicians and our business leaders to nip the regulation and to show how Canadians have done this in the past.
I think the mayor has done a tremendous job in reaching out to both the province and to the federal government in Ottawa to try and get that collaboration conversation started. But there does seem to be some resistance and some territorial imperatives, which are human nature. But we have to cut through them, and we have to. It's not only between municipal, provincial, and federal governments. The departments in Edmonton don't talk to themselves. The departments in Ottawa don't talk to themselves. And so, to actually, we were talking at lunch about waterways. And, you've got Ottawa, you've got Edmonton, and you've got the city, Edmonton in terms of the provincial government, and the city having to work together. And it's a very, very difficult thing to get everybody to come. NAV Canada, they have jurisdiction over our waterways here. So to get the proper engineering and work done for flood prevention is a really difficult process. One that we need to get resolved. I mean, that's one that's just right there. But I have another one. and some of you may have been, do you use Elbow Drive, some of you? So Elbow Drive was, you used it. Elbow Drive was ripped up, and we had to put in some new water mains, and we put in some new, at the same time, we put in some new fiber, and and that took quite a bit of time and quite a disruption to the city and people that use Elbow Drive. Well, I use Elbow Drive too. Then it gets all patched up, beautiful new road, everybody's sailing along, everybody's happy. All of a sudden, it gets ripped up again by us. So ATCO Gas has to go in. Now, I want you to, this is how absurd this is. We were not allowed to put in new pipe replacement in Elbow Drive at the same time that the city went in, because we didn't have the leak frequency required to put in replacement pipe. So the city with the, and we do a lot of common work now. ATCO Gas, NMAX, all the cable companies put their wires in at the same time when you have a new development. Everything goes in at the same time. It's very efficient, very, very well thought out. Now, because this is an established gas line, and it's a big main line under Elbow Drive, we don't have enough leak frequency to justify changing that piece of pipe. It's probably going to be changed in the next 5 years. Since the new water's put in, the new lines are put in, and the disruption, and that now we packed the road down and we put in the concrete, guess what? The pipe has more leaks because there's been lots of construction around the pipe. So that's one place where you could have coordination and collaboration. I mean, I understand, that you don't want to replace infrastructure too quickly. But the cost to the city of not replacing it and the disruption to citizens was, it was for naught. Then you have to go in 3 or 4 months later because all of a sudden you find that the construction has caused the leaks. Anyway, that's a little pet peeve of mine. Sorry.
If I may maybe move the conversation to you, Scott, to talk a little bit about, not to get away from you,
Sorry.
Nancy. We'll be coming back to you, I promise. But maybe we could talk a little bit about downtown, and perhaps you could share some of the things that might surprise people about the downtown core.
Yeah, so I'll be a bit brief because it's a little more dry than the fun stuff we've been at. There's 10 million square feet of office that have been developed over the last decade in the downtown. And we have 5 million square feet of office planned and actually under construction and committed to going at the moment. And the first question I usually get asked out there in the public is, what's going on? Are we going to have an empty downtown? Are we overbuilding? And I've been asked that question for 10 years every few days. And the short answer is it's an amazing city. We've grown 30% of our office stock. And it's an amazing city that's accommodated that. The vacancy rate now is about 2% in the AA assets. So the stuff that just got built, it's 2% vacant. And the stuff that's left behind that we'd call A assets, so the big ones that used to be our best assets, is a 6% vacancy. And that market, I mean, the AA market with the 5 million square feet that's coming to market right now is actually necessary, and it's necessary because we're putting loads on our floor plates of 2 times as many people per floor, so density, and air conditioning can't handle that. Fire exits can't, building codes, elevators, etc. So, and the interesting thing is that in our community, it's not the entrepreneurs right now that are really spurring on the big, the real big office growth. It's the big companies. So the big companies are getting bigger and they need bigger floor plates. One of the things that you don't think about unless you're in our business is that we used to have a desktop at our desk and it emits a whole bunch of heat. Now there's 3.5 units per office or per cube that are emitting heat. It's not just beyond the body itself, but we've now got a tablet sitting there and we've got our cell phone beside that and we've got our laptop beside that and we've got our desktop going all at the same time. So things like that have forced us to go into new technology. We're doing some leads that's really important to the future. And so and we got to add to that we want additional bike racks and we want more common area meeting space and we want daycare and we want fitness and we want some of those things. So all this stuff shouldn't scare you. It doesn't scare us in the business. We think that it's good. The next 5 million square feet will be the first stuff that's leased up. And functionally obsolete stuff that's maybe on the west end of town, that's a B and C asset. Some of it will get redeveloped or repurposed, and some of it will just become more and more empty. But you as users in the downtown will be the benefactor. We'll have good office space for all of you, and the institutions generally own our downtown. So my partner's a pension fund, and just about every office building above a certain size is owned by a pension fund. And that stuff's not leveraged. It's long-term value stuff. And so we don't need to be concerned. There may be some vacancy that hits double digits in 2018, but it'll get eaten up because of the Southern family and the Edwards family doing their hard work and creating energy. And Bruce, frankly, has got the easiest job on the planet. I mean, people are just coming here, and we're calling CED this great success story.
Well, sorry. That's very positive. Murray, maybe we can move to you. Just a quick anecdote. I was in the UK last week and mentioned I was from Canada, and they said, oh, you guys have the dirty energy and stuff. And obviously it's a challenge, the perception of our industry, not just abroad, but in Canada too. So I thought maybe you'd like to share some of the things industry's thinking about on changing that.
Sure. First, I was going to say I was blaming the mayor all the time for elbow driving. Now I'm going to blame you because I drive there every day. So, sorry. So yeah.
That was spirited.
And when I go into this answer, I want to come back to a bit that Scott and Nancy talked about, and Scott's bang on. When we talk about the challenges of the regulatory framework and having a public policy that incentivizes and encourages growth, it's as much obligation on all of us in the room as industry leaders, as members of the industry, as members of the city, to collaborate and communicate to governments to find the right solutions. And so there is clearly an obligation on us, absolutely. And coming to the oil sands, stepping back a bit, as I said earlier, oil sands, 172 billion barrels, a great resource for Canada, a great resource for Alberta. Fossil fuels, in my mind, are going to be required well into the future. I just got back from Thailand there. 70 million people got back from Myanmar, Burma. 70 million people there. They're growing. What we can do on the conservation, they're going to take up on growth. So there's lots of demand. With the oil sands, clearly there is lots of public discussion and dialogue about the opportunity and about the challenges. And I know that when our mayor goes out, represents the city, he is a representative for the oil sands, and I know that he gets feedback and he advocates for us effectively. But in doing that advocation, we have to support him. And my story goes back, despite what some people think, I have many bosses too. On all my boards, my directors give me clear direction what I'm supposed to do and not supposed to do. And on Canadian Naturals Board, my directors would always say to me, Murray, we have to do a better job on the oil sands message. We're in the board, we know the story, but you industry have to get off your butt and start doing a better job. And then shortly thereafter, Jim Prentice, who was then the Minister of Environment in Ottawa, he came out to me and said, Murray, the industry, you guys have to step up your game. And then finally, I was at an event with the Prime Minister in Winnipeg, and he pulled me aside and said, Murray, look what he said, you guys know oil sands, I'm getting lots of feedback, you have to change your game, change the way you approach it. So back in 2009, 2010, the leaders of the industry, we sat around the table, and this was a great example of collaboration and communication. Anybody in the energy industry know that we're supposed to be the great entrepreneurs. We all think of the Texas Maverick, the guy who took his last dollar and drilled that last well and had the oil gushing out of the derrick. We all know that image. We're all great entrepreneurs, and we're the most competitive industry in the world, the oil and gas industry. So to sit around the table, what we did is we got the leaders of all the major companies in Calgary that are involved in the oil sands, and we said, we have to change the way we talk to Canadians. We have to up our game in terms of social responsibility. And it was interesting, around the table, I got different responses. One CEO said, Murray, I hear you, but that's not our job. Our job is to run our companies and maximize profit. That's the job of the mayor and the Prime Minister, to tell everybody and the Premier how great we are and cover for us. And I said, yeah, I don't think that works anymore. In today's world, politicians have to be responsive to public policy, public concerns. We have to make sure the public is working with us. We have to give our leaders, the mayor, the Premier, the Prime Minister, the background, the ammunition to go talk to Canadians. Another CEO said to me, Murray, you know what? I'm interested in some form of communication strategy, but I'm only willing to put $250,000 a year into it. I said, so you spend how much a year in Fort Murray? $1.9 billion in operating costs, and you want to spend $250,000. So over a period of about 6 months, we had lots of lively debate and discussion, and then the industry came together and collaborated on a communication strategy to Canadians. And we then went and hired experts. And I remember the first meeting, we hired these PR consultants that came in and they said, here's your strategy campaign, Alberta's oil sands. And I said, stop right there. Get rid of the word Alberta, put in there Canada, because this is Canada's oil sand. It's a Canadian asset. And out of that strategy, then the experts came in and said, it's all about Google and Twitter and Twitter and Facebook and all these things, which is an important tool. So we spent the first year, we went down that, and we weren't getting much uptake with Canadians. And then we started a more public discussion, a public dialogue, in which we started a broad communication strategy to Canadians, telling Canadians about the oil sands, telling them about the economic impact. We've all seen the ads of the bus company out of Quebec and how they manufacture buses in Quebec, or the trailer company out of BC that's making trailers for the oil sands.
What about Alberta?
Well, Alberta too. But we told these stories about the economic impact of the industry. And then we started telling stories about the way we developed the industry, and one that focused on continuous improvement on the environmental side. And we didn't have the leaders of the company speak because there was always going to be a little, you're biased. We took actually our employees that were in the front lines who were passionate what they do every day and started talking to Canadians. And out of that campaign, we do regular polling. The Canadian public has moved somewhere around 25 basis points more supportive of the oil sands development. And today when we do polling, it doesn't matter what political party you're a member of, Conservative, Liberal, NDP, or Green Party, in every case, the majority of people who identify with that party are supportive of continued development of the oil sands. So it's an example of collaboration and communication that has worked. Now, you have to always delve in details. In those support numbers, they say we support the continued oil sands, but we have to want to make sure it's being done in an environmentally responsible manner. And that's where, again, obligation comes back on the industry, back on our leaders to ensure that. That's what the public is looking to. And so we've done this communication strategy. Then a year and a half ago, the industry sat around the table and said, okay, we've now got Canadians understanding the importance of the industry, the impact. We have to make sure, though, we follow that up with action. You can't just talk the talk. You have to walk the talk. And so 18 months ago, we created a thing called CASIA, Canadian Oil Sands Innovation Alliance. So the 12 major producers in the oil sands, we're now collaborating on technology when it relates to environmental matters. And let me tell you again, that was no easy task, because first the lawyers came in and said, well, good God, you can't combine on technology, that's anti-competitive. And I said, good God, you're going to tell me that Canadians and the Competition Board is going to be upset about collaborating on environmental standards? I said, figure it out. The lawyers went away and they figured it out. And so now we're collaborating in the 4 areas: water usage, land reclamation, greenhouse gas emissions, and aerial and other forms of emissions. We're now collaborating on technology. We've now put over $700 million of combined R&D together, finding ways to make our environmental performance better. Because I know that when the mayor goes out to speak outside Calgary, or when the Prime Minister speaks, or the Premier, they have to make sure the public understands that the industry has been run responsible and the importance of the economy. So it's our job to help them communicate the message better. And there's an example how industry and governments have collaborated, and there's an obligation, there's a clear obligation back on us as industry leaders to do it right. It's not just about, short-term profit maximization, it's about long-term value creation so we can maintain prosperity and everything else. So there's an example that I feel very passionate about. That being said, another phrase we now use, it's a marathon, not a sprint. This is going to be something that we're going to be doing over the next decade and decade beyond that, and it will be something that we're going to have to be committed to as an industry and as a government to doing it right for the long term.
That's awesome.
Well said.
We have time for one last quick question, and it's to you, Nancy. We've talked a little bit about innovation in the energy sector. There's certainly a lot of change happening in other industries Scott spoke to. What about in the electricity generation industry? Are we going to see more green energies, or what innovations coming out of that?
There is lots of innovation coming out of that, and CASIA is one of the drivers. The fact that the oil sands groups have gotten together, we have this wonderful water resource in our province, and actually managing water better is a big part of the environmental sustainability of developing the oil sands. And putting together a proper roadmap as to how we manage the water on the Athabasca is actually going to be able to deliver not only water management, reduce flooding in the Fort McMurray area, have constant flows in the river as opposed to the up and down that we're seeing. We will also be able to harness that and provide hydroelectricity out of this entire water management plan for the Athabasca. And I think that's very exciting, and that is innovative. The hydro isn't exactly new, but it's a run-of-river technology that is new prior to, like, the Glenmore Dam's turbines that were put in. And that's going to allow us to reduce emissions as oil sands grows and reduce emissions throughout the province using non-emitting water as a fuel. We will continue to see solar advance on a distributed basis, I believe. It's coming along really quite quickly. I'm not sure that I'm not sure the system can sustain a lot more wind at this point in time, because you need so much more reinforcement. When the wind stops, and it does occasionally, you need to be able to bring on power from other sources. And so you need to have doubling up of the system, the infrastructure, the electrical grid, in order to keep it going. So I think we're pretty much where we're going to be for a while on the wind farm status. I think you're going to start to see innovation in coal. Coal is the lowest cost fuel. It's the highest emitting fuel, but we are 900 years long on coal in Alberta. And to not use that resource is a shame. We will come up with innovative technology that will reduce emissions, gasify coal to a point where it's acceptable and meets the standards that we've set. Canada is the only country in the world that has actually put in physical compliance for coal generation. We're the only country in the world that says after 50 years, the coal plants have to shut down. And there is no more coal plants to be built, but we have all of this resource. So I know our resiliency and our innovation is going to drive better, cleaner technology to use coal. Because when Murray gets all of his gas ready to go out to those LNG plants or across the country or into the United States, we're not going to want to use $18 gas to burn for electricity. It's going to be too expensive for electricity. So we're going to have to come up with new technology that delivers low-cost, reliable electricity for Albertans. Thank you.
Hear it for our panelists, our distinguished guests. So I do want to thank you all for participating here, and I came away with some really neat things here. One for sure is I'm going to be talking to our credit department when I get back to the office about the under-demolished strip malls that we're lending money to right now as we speak. Certainly, as I drive there down Elbow Drive, I'll be thanking Nancy for having paved it for us, and of course, when I see the towers with the energy logos or the big energy company logos, I'll be thinking that that is a model for collaboration for all of us. So thank you again, everyone. But if you'll help me pick a winner, because we have some WestJet tickets to give away. Oh, they're right here. Would one of you like to, Nancy, would you like to pull a card for us?
Well, maybe Murray should.
Oh, Murray.
He's got the best luck.
All right.
I've got no, sorry. I have from Deloitte Choose a Citrus Lee, Managing Partner, Alberta. Curtis Lee, sorry.
Are you here?
Curtis?
Chris.
Oh, Chris Lee. So with that, we've come to an end. The cash bar will be open till 2, so please take a copy of your report and your Life in Calgary magazine on your way out this afternoon. Thank you for spending your lunch with us. Thanks very much, Scott. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Murray, thank you very much.